Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're looking ahead, maybe not too far ahead, to autonomous vehicles. I mean, the promise is huge, right? Safer roads, maybe no traffic jams, mobility for everyone. It sounds amazing. But is it really that straightforward? We're going to cut through some of the hype today and get into the real sort of nitty-gritty stuff, the ethical questions, the legal tangles, how society might change. We've got the research, the reports.
Yeah, and it's interesting how the conversation tends to get sidetracked. You know, people focus on certain things, maybe the more sci-fi aspects, and miss the really practical, immediate challenges.
Exactly.
So our goal today is really to give you that shortcut to get past the headlines and understand the complex reality of self-driving tech.
Right. We'll tackle that famous thought experiment. Turns out it might be a bit of a distraction.
The red herring.
And then navigate the legal maze, figure out who's responsible. And there's this weird paradox we found about what people say they want versus what they'd actually, buy. So yeah, get ready for some aha moments. We're diving deep into what AVs really mean for all of us.
Okay, so where do we start that distraction you mentioned?
Let's do it. When people think ethics and self-driving cars, one thing almost always comes up: the trolley problem.
Yes, the classic. Brakes fail. Does the car hit, say, 5 people or swerve and hit one person? Maybe even you, the passenger.
It forces this really dramatic choice, but, is that the main ethical hurdle for AVs? Before we get into why maybe it isn't, can you quickly refresh us on the two big ethical ideas clashing there?
Sure. So you basically got two main camps. First, there's utilitarianism. The idea is to do the greatest good for the greatest number, maximize good, minimize harm.
Okay.
So in that crash scenario, a purely utilitarian car would sacrifice the one to save the many. And surveys, like that huge moral machine experiment online.
Oh, yeah, I remember that one. Millions of people weighed in.
Exactly. And it showed a pretty strong global preference for that kind of outcome. I think it was around 76% said that AV should sacrifice one passenger to save 10 pedestrians. People generally prioritized, saving more lives, saving humans over animals, that sort of thing.
Okay, so that's utilitarianism. What's the other side?
The other main framework is deontology. This is more about following rules, duties. A key rule might be, do not intentionally cause harm.
So even to save more lives, the car shouldn't actively choose to kill someone.
Potentially, yes. A strict deontologist might argue against the car taking an action specifically designed to cause a fatality, even for a perceived greater good. But here's the twist. Many experts in automotive engineering, law, even major car makers like Volvo, they argue this whole trolley problem setup. It's mostly a red herring when it comes to actual AV development.
A red herring? How so? If a crash is unavoidable.
Well, that's the point. They argue the premise, an unavoidable collision where the only option is choosing who to hit, is fundamentally flawed from an engineering standpoint.
So they're saying it just wouldn't happen.
The goal, the absolute primary design goal, is a near zero accident rate. These cars are packed with sensors, radar, LiDAR, cameras constantly scanning, predicting, analyzing. The AI is designed to prevent those situations entirely.
I see. So it's not about making the least bad choice in a crash.
Exactly. It's about continuous risk assessment and avoidance long before it gets to that point. Think tiny adjustments, predicting what other drivers or pedestrians might do, always maintaining a safety buffer.
Can you give an example? Like, what does that look like in practice?
Sure. The German Ethics Commission actually put out a report on this. They said technology must, first and foremost, avoid getting into critical situations. And crucially, it shouldn't make life or death decisions based on personal traits like age or gender. So the real ethical challenge isn't who should the car hit. It's more like, how does the AV continuously objectively manage risk? Maybe it subtly shifts a few inches further away from a cyclist it detects, or it anticipates a pedestrian might step out and slows down proactively way before a human driver might even notice.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense. It's about prevention, not philosophical choices at 60 miles an hour.
Precisely. Proactive prevention.
So if we reframe it that way, moving past the trolley problem, what does this mean for us, the people who might ride in or walk near these cars?
Well, it highlights this really fascinating kind of contradictory thing in society. That moral machine experiment showed people say they want utilitarian AVs, cars, programmed to save the most lives, even sacrificing the passenger.
Right, the 76% figure.
Yeah. But when you ask people if they'd buy a car programmed that way, one that might sacrifice them,
they're not so keen.
Not at all. One study found people were way less likely to buy a self-sacrificing AV. The likelihood rating was like 19 out of 100. compared to a car programmed to protect the passenger above all else, which scored around 50 out of 100.
So we want other people's cars to be saints, but our car should be our bodyguard.
Kind of, yeah. It's a very human response, isn't it?
Mm.
But it creates a real problem.
How so?
It's a collective action problem. If everyone demands self-protective cars, and manufacturers build them that way to sell them,
Then we might actually slow down the adoption of AVs overall.
exactly. We could delay getting this potentially life-saving technology, the tech that could eliminate that 94% of crashes caused by human error onto the roads widely.
So paradoxically, aiming for maximum collective safety in programming might slow down achieving maximum collective safety in reality because people won't buy the cars.
That's the tension. It's a huge challenge for the industry balancing safety goals with consumer acceptance and trust.
Okay, that's a lot to think about on the ethics side. Let's shift gears a bit. Beyond the philosophy, there's the messy reality of accidents. They will still happen, even if rarely. Who pays? Who's legally responsible when there's no driver in the traditional sense?
Right. And our current legal systems, built around human drivers making mistakes, they're not really set up for this, are they?
Doesn't seem like it.
It forces us to completely rethink liability. How do concepts like negligence or product defects apply when it's an autonomous system involved? The sources we looked at show liability could fall on several parties.
Like who?
Could be the human operator, if there still is one in some capacity. Could be the car manufacturer, the company that wrote the software, maybe even a company that supplied a faulty sensor, or potentially even the government for road design or infrastructure issues. Gets complicated fast.
And I guess it depends on how autonomous the car actually is, those SAE levels.
Absolutely critical. For levels 2 or 3, think advanced cruise control or lane keeping, where the human must stay alert and ready to take over the responsibility, still largely rests with the driver.
Because they're supposed to be supervising.
Exactly. There was that Tesla lawsuit in 2020, our sources mentioned. The driver used autopilot on a road it wasn't designed for, wasn't paying attention, and was found at fault after a crash.
Yeah.
So it's created this new kind of human error, misuse or over-reliance on the automation.
Right, trusting the tech too much. But what about the higher levels? Level 4, level 5. Truly driverless cars.
That's where the big shift is expected. For level 4 or 5, where the car handles everything in certain conditions, or all conditions, and no human intervention is needed.
Then it points back to the maker.
Generally, yes. If the crash happens because of a flaw in the system, bad code, sensor failure, poor design, then product liability laws likely come into play, making the manufacturer responsible.
And Volvo actually stepped up on this.
They did, quite proactively actually. They pledged to accept full liability when their cars are operating in full autonomous mode. That was a big statement, even before some of the formal regulations were in place.
That sets a precedent. But looking globally, it sounds like everyone's tackling this differently. There isn't one clear answer yet.
Not even close. It's really varied. The U.S., for example, doesn't have a single federal law governing AVs. It's more what some sources call a harmful patchwork of state laws, plus voluntary guidelines from agencies like USDOT and NHTSA.
So state by state, it could be different. That sounds confusing.
It can be. It potentially slows things down, creates uncertainty for developers and the public. The U.S. approach seems to lean more towards letting innovation happen and figuring out the rules as we go.
How does that compare to, say, Europe or China?
Very different approaches. Germany passed its Autonomous Driving Act in 2021, providing a clear framework for Level 4 operation in specific areas. The EU as a whole is aiming for a unified framework by 2026, really focusing on getting the rules and rights sorted out first.
More top-down regulation.
Seems that way. And China. They're moving very aggressively. They see AVs as strategically important. Over 20 cities allow Level 4 testing, and they have pretty clear legal principles already assigning liability primarily to the vehicle owner or operator for Levels 4 and 5. They're pushing hard for technological leadership.
Wow. So you've got the U.S. focused on innovation speed, the EU on rights and standards, China on dominance. These different paths could cause friction, couldn't they?
Absolutely. If systems developed under one regulatory philosophy can't easily operate under another, or if liability rules differ drastically, it could definitely slow down global deployment. We might need much more international cooperation to smooth things out.
So bringing this all together, where does this leave us, standing right on the edge of this huge shift in transportation?
Well, we've seen the trolley problem, while intellectually interesting, isn't the engineers' main focus. They're aiming for near-zero accidents through constant prevention.
Right. Avoid the dilemma altogether.
And we've seen the legal side is complex. Liability shifts depending on the automation level. And globally, everyone's writing their own rule book, which could cause problems.
Plus that strange paradox, we want cars to be ethical superheroes for society, but maybe not if it puts us at risk personally.
Yeah, that collective action problem. It shows how public perception and individual psychology are just as important as the technology itself.
So the real mountains to climb seem to be designing for that near-zero accident future, creating clearer and maybe more unified legal rules, building public trust.
And also dealing with the big socioeconomic questions, like what happens to all the people who drive for a living. That's a massive piece of this puzzle, too.
Definitely. It really makes you think.
And it leaves us with a final thought, really, for you listening. As these cars become more common, how do we strike that balance? How do we weigh our individual desire for safety against the potential for massive collective benefit this technology promises? What kind of future do you want to drive into?